What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Inner World playthrough part 7, I think. Yeah, I think part 7. I adjusted the game volume, so let me know if it sounds better, if I need to adjust it up or down or anything like that. But yeah, some really great comments and ideas. And yeah, it's yet again I'm having a lot of fun interacting with you guys and the thoughts that you're bringing to the table. Really cool and inspiring for sure. So I'm gonna quickly give the sword to Edgar and then go back to Irina and kind of get her quest going. Glitch had a really cool kind of find, expanding on the treasure chests that are in game, and kind of made the conclusion that what we're reaching into is like we're reaching into the Elden Ring and what it represents, which I think is like spot on for sure. I mean, I think it's the whole motif of it is trying to depict like it's in the middle, it's in that balance that the true treasure lies, and that comes from within. So the fact that they put that level of iconography and you know the thematics that the whole game is about, again, like his split armor shows that too. I mean, it's everywhere. So the fact that they put it in the treasure chest is really cool. And then he also made the connection of the double lions in the motif. It represents the mother goddess, which again is spot on with what we're talking about here. That Marika represents the Great Mother archetype. So it's very fitting.
I'm in your debt for keeping the sword from those fallen creatures. I'm no longer bound by duty. Once I've rescued Irina, I will spend my remaining days with her. Thanks to you, I will be reunited with Irina and devote my remaining days to her. Irina has a gentle nature, though. I only hope it remains intact. Thanks to you, and devote my Irina has a. I only hope it.
I think it's interesting that he says that she has a gentle nature, and that she basically gets consumed by an outer god. The kind of, I don't know if chaos is an outer god, but by a quote unquote god. I'm working on a lore video right now, and it's actually about the Glowmite Queen, and I make the connection that the godskin swaddling cloth isn't necessarily like literally a swaddling cloth made of newborn skin, but rather represents like the target of the outer gods. And to me, like, newborn, soft, supple, it's all young, it's all like naive, it's all kind of pointing to like the same state of one's psychological development, right? Like a very young, naive person. And I believe that that's like the gods seem to target that type of development, because they're easily molded, right? Like when somebody's fully developed and they kind of have their own thoughts and opinions on the world, it's hard to change their. Oh my God, are you kidding me? I'm not even close to being able to kill this guy. So I find it interesting that he says that she is of gentle nature, which immediately points to me that she is more naive. Like she's a little bit more susceptible to like an outer influence, if you will, which I believe is what, again, like what the gods kind of target. It's really no different than like, fuck. It's really no different than, let's say, like a baptism. Very rarely does somebody get baptized later on in life. Just because, like, not that baptism is wrong, but by then, later in life, somebody usually has a pretty good idea of like what they firmly believe about the world, and it's more difficult to get that person to kind of be kind of a single track mind, like looking at the world in one specific way. And I believe that the swaddling cloth is literally like the the warm embrace of that God, and it's really no different than, you know, like the like swaddled in a manger story. You know, it's if we're looking at it in that context, it's a lot more likely to me that that is what that is representing. That the Glomite Queen is swaddling the more naive, more susceptible, more eager mind, and is able to convince that mind to join her movement, if you will. So that's kind of how I see that, and I think it's very fitting that he uses the word. Did I already do this? I must have. That, oh, maybe I have to start it up. That he uses the word gentle. Because I think you could argue that gentle and naive are kind of the same thing. Like, usually somebody is gentle because they can either choose to be gentle, right? Because they have the ability and kind of the depth of character to hold within themselves both this kind of ferocity and gentleness. But I think that is a more rare, kind of on the fringes explanation of why somebody would be gentle. I think unfortunately people are usually gentle because they're kind of naive about the world. And they don't really have the development to see that the world is a hard, difficult place. And it's great to be gentle, but you also have to be firm in your resolve, or else this difficult world will undoubtedly skew your perception. And where the hell is this thing? I thought it was just in a bush. Oh, there he is. So yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on that. But yeah, I'm working on a Glowmite Queen video. Been working on it for probably a month now or so, and it's really interesting. Yeah. So let me just look at this for a second. So you see the lions kind of flanking the tree, and according to Glitch, and not necessarily according to Glitch, but he made the connection that this same motif is connected to the Mother Goddess, and which is like, yeah, brilliant. It's also so this. A lot of people have said that the Saint Trina represents the double helix, but it's actually this exact not symbol, but what's the word I'm trying to think of? Whatever it is, it's those like intertwined lines, which, depending on how you look at it, right? You could look at it as kind of like the interconnectedness of one's self. You could look at it like it's the interconnectedness between consciousness and nature. You could look at it like it's the threads of fate, all sorts of different stuff. But I don't believe that it is the double helix structure that we see in like the Godslayer sword, for example. I think it represents something else. And the first thing that comes to my mind is the Norse mythology about the fates, how there's three threads of fate, the fates, and you can see here that there's three different braids, if you will, and then whenever I see, you know, a symbol and then its mirror image facing each other, or a reflection of it, I immediately get, you know, the duality of man, the consciousness, unconsciousness, order, chaos, light and dark, all that kind of stuff. So this single treasure chest is telling us a lot, right? It's telling us that the treasure actually comes from within, and it's not found above the surface in the ego conscious mind, and it's not found below the surface in the unconscious mind, but it's found right in the center, where all these things kind of coexist. And then it talks, you know, if you choose to think that it's the fates, the thread of the fates intertwined, that symbol, it's telling the story that, and you kind of see this in the Erd Tree kind of motif and iconography in the throne, the Elden Throne area, where you see it on the actual Erd Tree, and it's like this clearly a chronological order of events, and the game talks about fate a lot, and that there's no escaping your fate, and your fate and your true self are one and the same, according to Jung. So Jung thinks that your true self is your ultimate fate. Like, you can't really run from it, you know? Like, you can wear different masks, you can repress different things, but sooner or later, your true self will come out. That is your fate as an individual. So, yeah, it's a lot, a lot going on in this one single thing. So, Memory Stone. I always forget to use these things. Okay, Memory Stone, a black, lightly begooling. Sorry, I'm terrible with pronunciation. Stone. I know that begooling means like I think it means like it's enticing almost, like or maybe it's like a reflection. I mean, I have my phone right here. Let me just look it up. So, saying a bunch of bullshit. Yeah, charm or enchant someone. So, it's like very like meant to like charm, enchant somebody by looking at it. Prized by the sorcerers who produce them. Increases memory slots. Said to be a fragment of the black moon that once hung above the eternal city. Yeah, I think I'll just wait until I get... Oh, you idiot! Whoops. That's my bad. So somebody asked about the they wanted a little bit more about why I'm connecting the the Nox to the Illuminati, and I don't want to just blurt it out, so I'll probably leave most of it for when we actually get down to the Eternal Cities. But it's essentially the story of the Illuminati is like the actual Illuminati, not the one that is in the conspiracies today. But so Illuminati just, I mean, it means like people of light, people of intelligence, that type of thing. So a lot of renowned scientists, psychologists, philosophers, all that kind of stuff were actually part of the original Illuminati. And it was just a society that embraced science. I'm not going to say instead of faith, but I would say they embraced science more than they embraced faith. Let's just say that. But because of their findings and what they were saying and what they were teaching the world, they were literally driven underground and made more of a secret society because they were getting persecuted by the church. And it's like the story and what we see in game is like damn near damn near identical to what we see happening with the like Golden Order or with the Greater Will and the Illuminati and the church. So yeah, it's really really interesting, and the connections that they make are very strong ones. But yeah. I will, again, I'll expand on this much more when we actually get down there, but yep, I just kind of wanted to express a little bit more about why I think that. And it's also clear, right, like that creation of life in the terms of, or sorry, in the context of the church is completely like up to God. Like, it's not to be meddled with, it's not to be changed, or it's all God's will and God's vision. So to even have the idea to try to create life goes directly against the very fundamentals of, where is this thing? Of the church. And I believe that is what they were, I believe that's what caused the greater will's kind of ire and why they were driven underground. It's the exact same story of the Illuminati. It's, and I believe that the black moon represents kind of like the cold, black, soulless pursuit of science. But anywho, let me look at this actually really quick. So, a purple flower that blooms in graveyards, material used for crafting items, the hue of ghost flame. It's believed to be useful in calling forth spirits. Thanks to a lot of really devoted people, lore hunters, the understanding of the color scheme and the different representations of them is really apparent. And I'll be the first to admit, I haven't actually read or listened to any of those. I think it's something that is almost apparent enough that I don't feel like I need to watch an hour-long video explaining it. Not that I'm above it or I won't learn anything, but it's just something that hasn't necessarily popped into my thought process yet. But we know that red is associated with things like life, vigor, crucible, that type of thing, and then blue is associated with more of the mind, intelligence, faith, science, things like that. So to me, purple would then be obviously the combining of those two things, the body and the mind. There was another really interesting comment about the more underground, the areas of the lands between, and kind of their functionality as well as what they could represent in America's psyche. And one that I found really interesting was the catacombs. They have no further checkpoints in them. Like the site of grace is near the door, and then there's no other site of grace, right? And I think if there is a stake of America in them, it is just next to the boss door. And to me, if the catacombs are associated obviously with things like death and darkness and the more occult, that it would make sense that America's ego is not able to like manifest itself within these places, because like the mining tunnels, there's different checkpoints. There's different sites of grace that go through them, and it's more of, like he was saying, a functionality than it is like a representation of maybe the darker parts of America's consciousness, which I thought was really, really interesting. I thought that was a great point to bring up. Like this is kind of like the shadow side of her, right? This is kind of where the shadow, the repressed side of her lives. So it makes sense that if side of grace represents her kind of her consciousness and her guiding grace, you know, of the decisions that she's making to progress her life, that those things would not dwell kind of in the darker recesses of her mind. I fucking hate this boss fight. It's a real mother effer. That was helpful. That's helpful. I think it's bullshit they can't hurt each other. Ow. I'm also, I think I may have been misunderstanding the Elden Beast and the thought that it represents the self. Somebody brought up a really, really, really good point on my lore video, which is that the Elden Beast is also very much a representation of the universe, right? Of the cosmos, which is like kind of like a no duh type of thing. But one thing about the Vitruvian Man is that one of its purposes, if you will, is Leonardo da Vinci thought that the proportions of the Vitruvian Man would represent the microcosm. Am I saying this correctly? Okay, so the macrocosm, right, is the things in the universe, things that when we look up, it's what we see. And the philosophy back in that day, which is, I think, still holds true, is that that macrocosm is within us, right? So we are a reflection of that. We are the microcosm. So we are the universe, essentially. We are everything that we see in the macrocosm. And with the fact that America and Radagon are one, and one based off of their scar seals, very much represents the more divine qualities and one represents the more physical qualities. Together, they are the divine couple. They are the macrocosm. Da Vinci thought that if you could square the circle, that it would represent this concept. And I believe that is what the Elden Beast represents. It is the combination of Marika and her animus, the divine, the physical, the male, female, all those different dualities, and together they are the universe, which fits in really well to what we see. I still think that like there's this whole play on it representing the human nervous system, and that it represents the growth of Marika from a more draconic figure, but I think that Marika's self is actually represented by Melina, because Melina has arguably more godlike powers than anybody else. She has the ability to turn runes into strength. She can come and go as she wants. She is both Marika's ego and shadow, the anima, the animus. She is deliberate and powerful and considerate, and all these different aspects of what the human psyche is made up is within Melina. And if you watch, which we will obviously later in the playthrough, if you watch what Melina, what she does when she is using herself as kindling is, let me see, is it time? I think it's time. Yeah. She is like the center anchor, it's like a railroad tie that holds together all the various pieces of the Elden Ring. It touches all of the various aspects of the personality. So, yeah. Actually, I'm going to do this real quick. But ever since that was, I always knew that about the Vitruvian Man, and I'm surprised I didn't make that connection. But I'm glad that somebody else pointed it out to me, or that just at least realized that the Vitruvian Man, or the Elden Beast, is very much like our local universe. It's what we can see. So, yeah, I interested to know what you guys think about that. But Melina as the self, containing all the various aspects, right, makes a lot of sense with what she is, with what she's doing. I mean, her entire job is to guide us into reassembling these various aspects of Marika's psyche, and freeing the shadow, and reintegrating all these different things. And the more and more that we do that, the more and more that she becomes autonomous, basically. Like, she becomes, when we first arrive in the game, she's completely unaware of like what she's supposed to be doing, and why she is doing what she's doing and what she's doing here, because of how fractured Marika's psyche is. that fracture is reflected in Melena's intellect, basically. Like, not really sure what she's supposed to be doing. I think I'm supposed to be going through the Erd tree. Other than that, like, hopefully I get a better idea along the way. And the more that we gain great runes and progress the story and things like that, it becomes clear that Melina acts, she even says, like, I'm acting on my own volition now. Like, it's, I can see what's wrong with this world, and I know what I need to do to fix it. So, yeah, it's, and when we essentially don't use her as that kindling, we're never really able to fully reintegrate all the aspects to Marika, because the self is not actualized. It's not fully realized, because we did not. That burning is what I believe to be like the new birth of Marika's psyche. Fire is very much associated with, you know, those types of new life concepts and things like that. So when we choose to burn ourselves after, you know, we embrace the frenzied flame, that is the new order, right? That is the new self, if you will. The new driving force of Marika's psyche, which is why Melina is like, please don't do this. Like, do not do this. This is not good. It's not going to help anything. Chaos is not good for the world, all that kind of stuff. So, again, just ramblings of a madman here.
Foul tarnished. In search of the Elden Ring. Emboldened by the flame of ambition.
Lucky.
Thou art of passing skill. Warrior blood must truly run in thy veins. Tarnished.
Oh, you bastard. I think he's one of like the best like first bosses in any Souls game. he has such like a variation of moves and timing. This is like a very much an intro into like, you know, it's not the same 1-2 1-2 dodge attack. It's like much more of like a dance boss, and I always enjoyed this fight. It's also interesting that he is like able to project himself kind of in a
Tarnished, smoldering with thy meager flame. Cower in fear of the night. The hands of the fell omen shall brook thee no quarter.
he enters in like this golden form and is able to like project himself, and even when we kill him there, he kind of disintegrates into this gold dust, and to me, I see that very much as a projection of Marika's ego. If things that are golden represent her consciousness, it shows that she is projecting Margit, or Morgoth, or whatever you want to say, to come stop us, which shows that her ego is still not on board with this process of individuation, with this change of guard, and she's doing everything she can to stop that. She even projects Godfrey. Once we get the strongest warrior that she knows, she projects him once we get close to the Erd Tree, to stop us. Not the actual like Horaloo boss fight, but the one before, where Godfrey is golden. And again, I think it shows the it shows like the fact that here's what I think is probably going on with. So I believe that something happened to Marika, which I explained in a previous video, that made her question everything that she's doing. I believe that was the very moment that Melina is born. This questioning of what is happening and why the world around her is crumbling, her world, makes her stop in her tracks and question the things that she's doing and start the process of individuation and of psychological development. And that this is where Melina is born, at the base of the Erd Tree. It is, she talks about that her mother gave her what she's supposed to do, and it's clear that she is supposed to bring about this new change. But that questioning and that first step of individuation is a painful one, and it is still very much a battle of what we're used to and who we're meant to be. Those two things cause friction, right? The ego and the unconsciousness, the light and the dark within us. And this is where Melina operates. So it's clear that Marika's ego is still fighting this process. She's still sending things at us to stop us. And I mean, we know Morgoth to be even though that he was kind of discarded by the consciousness, if you will, is now its biggest defender. And she uses this part of herself to defend her ego. And Morgott is very much the archetype of like the not the everyman. I sorry, I forget exactly what it is, but there's an archetype where it's like you just want to fit in and like do right by the current status quo, and he's clearly a very powerful force in America's consciousness. This resistance to change, if you will. So, yeah, I think it's interesting that because America is able to recognize that there's this thing in her that is growing, and it's a more, we represent kind of like this change, the hero archetype of we are going to fix the world around us, no matter how painful it might be, and America is able to recognize that, and she is sending her ego and things that are associated with the resistance of that change to us, to stop us. That is that flame that is growing inside of us. Right now, yes, it's small and meager, but as we go, which is very much characteristic of a hero, is we start from nothing. Like, we're not anybody. Like, the game literally tells us we're no renown, right? Like, nobody knows who we are. We didn't come from a powerful family. There's no startup, nothing like that. We are just a nobody that sees that the world is messed up and needs change, and we are going to do that no matter how tough it might be.
You're tarnished, aren't you?
And as we grow and develop and get stronger, the flame of change within us is doing the same. It's growing, it's changing, it's developing.
Try the opening right here. The guards don't know about it. You'll breach the castle undetected.
Very well.
Yeah, you're just I pray.
Are these guys sorry, and maybe it says somewhere in an item description or something, but these guys all seem to be alabaster lords, right? Like, and now they're all kind of like slaves, prisoners. Again, very much like with the roots, symboling the unconscious. This is yet another kind of repressed unconscious sect of society or personal characteristic that has been repressed, and is now prisoner to the ego and to the consciousness and to the current zeitgeist. I'm really interested into what the alabaster and onyx lords are. I believe them to represent like Isaac Newton, Galileo, like these kind of giants of scientific discovery, specifically Isaac Newton with his theory of gravity, and the fact that Radon was taught by an alabaster lord about gravity. Yeah, it's but what they actually are, there's very little, and why there's two different colors when they both, from what I can tell, do the same thing. Like they're both kind of gravity spell experts. Okay. Glitch brought up another good comment, kind of stating that he believes that faith and science not only can coexist, but does in most of the world. And I would agree that faith and science can in the majority of the world. But I think it's been proven over and over and over again that religion and science cannot. And I think that Glitch was right in saying that the real thing, the real gripe is that it's not that it's faith, but it's the dogma that surrounds it. And that is what cannot coexist with science. And I mean, I would just make the argument that religion is kind of the dogmatic version of faith, if you will. Like I think if you take some Middle Eastern countries as an example, you'll find that religion is very much a dogmatic. I don't really know how to say this without sounding just like atheist, which I'm not. But I think it's hard to make the argument that science and religion can coexist when there has been and still is this almost like manhunt in countries even to this day for things that go against the teachings of a certain religion. Like it's I understand what he is saying, but I don't see any evidence of that in the world with respects to religion and science coexisting. I'm curious to know what everybody else's opinion on that is, but there's been far too many acts of punishment towards those who spread the word of science, if you will. Oh god. To really fairly say that those two things can harmonize together. And again, like, don't get me wrong, there's definitely exceptions to that. I would say that, like, for the majority of people that aren't totally one way or the other, it's apparent that these two things can coexist, but they still are in direct opposition to one another. But anyway, so I don't need to ramble on about that. I kind of want, before we finish, look at some of these pictures. Man, Godfrey was such a badass. I'm also surprised that nobody said anything about the the Animus development. At least nobody that I've seen yet. And that Godfrey is the first version of the Animus, and therefore the first Elden Lord for America, at least. And Radagon being the more developed prophetic character is the second stage of Animus development, and is therefore the second Elden Lord. And then we are the most developed, kind of like the most wise, and therefore we are the third most developed stage of America's Animus, and therefore the third Elden Ring. But either way, I think that I will... We're running out of time, so I kind of have to leave it at there for now. But we will continue through Stormveil and continue chatting. Thank you all for watching. Much appreciated. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and then stay tuned for a new lore video hopefully coming out in the next week or two. So much love. I'll see you on the next one.